Hello everybody, John here, and today on To The Garage we're doing the second part of the suspension upgrade saga where we rebuild the front suspension. So the gaiters for the dampers we are reusing. I've cleaned these up with soapy water and then soaked them in Auto Glim vinyl and rubber care, and they still seem very nice and supple, so very pleased with those. And the front lower spring cups I just wire brushed up and gave a quick blast over with some satin black paint. So we are ready to start rebuilding. And as with the disassembly, I'm going to use my vise, but in case you didn't see the previous video, please be aware you do not clamp your dampers in a vise, no matter how gently, because the tube of the damper or strut, whatever you want to call it, is a cylinder with a piston running inside it. And if you slightly distort it, you'll ruin it. If you dent it, you'll definitely ruin it. So don't do it. What I'm doing is creating a cup to place my damper in, and the jaws on my vise will overhang just a little bit and stop it from coming out up above. So it's just a little nest, if you like, makes it a lot easier to handle things. So let's get hold of the damper. Here she is, one of Bilstein's finest. There's the numbers for numbers folk. With a bright shiny new bush in the bottom, which was completely shot on mine. So this sits in the vise. I am going to close it, but only so far as the, getting the towel wrapped up, so that the jaws are above the damper and will stop it popping out. There we go. So that's probably about it. It's completely loose, but it's a little easier to handle and wrangle whilst doing the job. There is no pressure on that whatsoever. So we've got to get the spring seat back on. It goes on with the flare going down, so there should be a recess under the cup when you've got this on. And there's a ridge on our damper. Move you again. I think that's probably a better shot. There's a ridge here on the damper, and we're going to push it up to that ridge. Now when we're taking this off, this was very, very tight, but that was purely to do with rust. The old damper was very crusty, and therefore the whole thing moved around. There we go. So the spring seat is on. There should be a nylon washer on there, which is on mine. Just so happens I've sprayed it over with a bit of black paint. Little dowel looking thing sticking out of the washer. That shows you where the tail of the spring sits. Right, now we're going to get our upgraded and lowered Adamesh springs and just position them nicely against that cup. And I've got the tail of the spring just up against that dowel. So that means you've got the right shape, the right form. Now, obviously this is too far back for us to reach, so we've got to go spring compressing again. So I'm going to take the spring off and we'll compress that a little before we insert it onto the strut. So I've got my spring compressors. Anybody who wants a similar set to mine, I will put a link in the description below the video for your interest. I'm going to clamp that one end there, but I can still rotate everything. And it all moves around. For no reason other than cosmetics. I don't want to scuff my springs up too much. So I'm just going to wrap some tape around the jaws, or hooks I guess is the right term, of my spring compressors. I'm just going to use my impact wrench, because there's a nice square drive in the end of these, to wind them up. Let's look at that one. Right, about 10mm more and we're in. There we go. So let's see what we can do. Through the bump stop, through the gaiter, rotate the seat at the bottom till a little dowel touches the tail. Pop that on. Pop the strut mount on. And then it's all about just getting the nut started and we'll be away. I'm running out of hands, but I think I can do it. We're on. Hey! Okay, so I've just got this tightened up. I didn't stop to film because I wanted to get it on and I had run out of hands. Couldn't grab hold of the camera. But just tightened up that nut. Still compressed. A lot of people do experience problems with the bolt that I've just tightened, wandering way off centre in their strut mounts. Now sometimes that is down to really badly manufactured strut mounts. The quality is not there, there's no support, the metal insert in the top wanders around and hey presto, it's all off to one side and making a racket. Some of it though is down to assembly, i.e. how you build the struts and how you fit them to the car. Now we are on 2 spring compressors, so you're not going to have this spring perfectly balanced, and I think you can probably see on mine that this is cocked over, so the top is well in compared to the bottom when you look at the damper now. I think that's probably the best angle. So our first mission is to get it back to even, so that when we apply the loads and really start compressing this is still quite slack. There's a gap here. we are going to bring it up nice and even. You also need to make sure that this shaped rubber washer here, it's hard, it's quite a nylon or urethane type washer. It's got a little pip on it that shows you where the tail end goes of your spring, and you want to make sure that that is touching, the tail is touching that. It means that the whole thing's the shape it should be. There's no tapered seat here, but you've got ground springs. So this flat here leaves a bit of a gap, and then it should start to meet over here. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close to a good even seat all the way around. So it's just making sure you assemble a thing correctly. Make sure this isn't cocked over to one side because it's sat on a dirty ring. So my next mission is I'm going to slacken the top first to get this nice and flat. Starting to straighten out. I'm going to release a little bit off the bottom just to give it some pressure, but it's still tight on the other end actually. There we are, a few turns. Then off with the top again. And that now is looking straight. So you're looking for the yellow part that's vertical in our shot to be at 90 degrees to the damper and in all planes. And it depends how you've attached your spring clamps. Are they opposites? Because they should be. Some people are lucky and have got a spring compressor press that would make light work of this. But yeah, at this stage, you could make sure that your struts are going to last a long time or destroy them. So now I'm just going to bring it down nice and even. That's looking good. All nice and square. My attempts to not scuff up my springs have gone badly wrong. And we're off. And there we are. Nice straight tower. But do note at the bottom how this shape has distorted the top hat. That's why the top hat is not made of metal. Some people get replacements and think, oh, that's cheap and nasty, it's made of plastic rather than metal. It has to distort. But yeah, it's nice and square and even up and down. You see my attempts not to scratch it have gone badly wrong, but hey ho. Now that this is reassembled, you can probably start to appreciate why it's difficult to say this spring will reduce this car's height by X just by looking at it and dimensions. The spring has put huge load on this, and is stretching the strut or damper to the maximum height, i.e. this is exactly the same length as when we disassembled it with the very long spring on. The only thing that's going to affect the ride height is the rate of this spring. Springs are rated in distance per load. So you might get a 1 centimetre per 100 kilogram spring. That's absolute nonsense. I'm just using it as an example. It's nothing to do with this. What that would mean is every 100 kilograms you put on top of the spring will shorten by 1 centimetre. And it's that load rating that makes the difference. In theory, you'd know the weight of your car as it comes onto the spring. You should, with the right load rating, know how far this is going to drop. The exception to that sort of basic calculation is some rings are rising rate. And rising rate springs very often look like they've got bigger diameter coils at one end and smaller diameter coils at the other, such that the small coils, the small thickness coils will collapse first and give a relatively easy movement down. And as they can no longer move, the bigger coils come into play and you get a harder to depress car. The fact that these are tapered diameter actually gives a little bit of that effect as well. So the smaller coil down here in terms of diameter is harder to compress than this larger coil just here. There's a lot going on in the design of these. Also, some of the reason for doing a tapered spring, and potentially the reason that they chose to go for that on the Jag, is clearance. So to get the whole thing in, we needed to come away from the tyre a little bit in this area. But lots of things going on with springs, quite complex things. And what we're going to do now is remount it in the car. Good quality stuff, has thread protectors. So let's get rid of those. And I'm going to try and hoik that into the car. The bushes could also do with replacing, but that's for another day. The wishbone bushes, and I'll take that opportunity to take the wishbone off, grip blast it, powder coat it, do all that sort of good stuff. I've got some copper rich grease spray, which is a really good idea to put some in the hole where your wishbone pin is going to go, and in your bushes. Just means you're not going to have problems with the pin seizing in future. And now it's time to install our new damper. So the holes at the top, there's 3 of them. One is symmetrically central and close to the engine, so use that as your reminder. And I'm just going to lift it into position, and then I'll just put a nut on loose from the top to stop it moving around. I might be just grunting rather than commentary on that. After struggling in the previous video with bungee cord to hold the weight of the hub up a little, I created this chain with a hook on one end, and I got an S hook at this end which I can hook onto the wheel nuts. And the beauty of this is I can use different links in the chain to give it a different length. So I'm just going to drop this down as far as I can without straining the brake pipe. There we go. That's great. And let's put this damper strut assembly in place. Very easy to position with everything out the way like that. Okay, I'm just going to go out of shot now whilst I put this nut on. There we are. Finger tight, but in. Now, I'll reposition all of this. Just gotta get the wishbone around like that. Use my chain to jack it up a couple of notches. Just gotta get your damper between the shoulders down here. Yeah, in order to lift the hub back up, you need to get the damper between its little forks. There we go. So, I could do with an extra pair of hands here again, but we'll make do with just the two. Nearly there. Another couple of notches. Getting close. Right, I think I'll put the wishbone back together first, then put the damper bolt in. That's probably the easiest way of doing it. Let's just check everything's in the right places in terms of ABS lead. Yeah, nothing trapped. There's the earth lead for the ABS. Brake pipes. That's going to be down there. Good. Right, so we just need to assemble this pin. So here's our pin. It's going to get another little bit of copper slip on it. Just put that in into the bush. Okay. Now, if you've seen the previous video, you know I told everybody if you're going to do this, make yourself up a little block. That's the first washer already on. Then the other side of the bush, that one with the shaped face in, followed by two plain washers, shims. They're different thicknesses. It is critical to the setup of your car. This is how the caster is set, caster angle. So I'm just going to push that through far enough to receive the first washer. There it is. Ah, yes, well done. I'm congratulating the washers on staying where they're supposed to be just there. I've got an Allen key through the other end, so that's held the washers at that end in place. At least it went through easy this time. Done. And then the last item is just a shaped washer. So that goes on. big nut. A little bit of spray on that too. Now we don't want to tighten that pin until the car's down or I've artificially applied the car's body weight to this hub, because otherwise we'll tighten up on the rubber and we just get the wrong effects. We just want everything nice and settled and then tighten that pin. That can't be reconnected until I've done the other side. So now all I've got to do is get the damper bolt back in. Here is that. Okay, just to ease the current and future jobs. A little bit of weight lifting. Come on, damper, help me out. And we're on. Washer and nut this end. Whew. Again, that'll get tightened up when I've got a little bit of load on. Just checking everything looks okay down here. And we've got our ABS cable. Clips into that bracket there, and it's cable tied onto the top of the wishbone just there. I need to snap it in down here. So all looking good. A couple of cable ties and bolts away from finished. Tightening up that and tightening up these, and again we'll do that once we've got a little bit of weight on the car. Quite pleased with my chain system. S-hook, length for chain, and then we've got another S-hook up there, look, just goes into a hole in the chassis leg. Whew. That's it. Now what I'm going to do is exactly the same on the other side. You don't need to watch that, so that I can do the final reassembly, get some weight on and tighten all those bolts up. So for now, see ya. If you're enjoying our channel, then don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And please give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can share the videos. And below the video is always the area where you can comment and get involved with the chat.